What's up, everybody? It's your favorite scientist, favorite nerd. Today we are looking at Hasbro's Generations Voyager Scale Brainstorm. And I'm going to preface this by saying I am going to be extremely critical of this figure. It's not that I don't like him, I do. And I'll explain it all at the end why I'm going to be so critical of him. But I am going to be extremely critical of him. I do like him, but I'm going to be critical. That's just to get all of the butthurt prepared. So there's no unexpected butthurt, okay? Everybody calm down, take a deep breath, work with me. So he's a headmaster, which we were told we would never see again, which is nice to see. And he is a Voyager class, which is nice as well. Let's take a look. Let's talk top to bottom, okay? Because he's a beefy boy. Well, he's not beefy, but he's a big boy. Head is on a ball joint that is extremely loose. It's also the ball joint of the headmaster that we'll talk about later on, but it's not that it will wobble around, but there's no real, it just feels loose. It'll hold a position. It just feels loose. There's absolutely no regard for where the mask should end. The paint, sorry for the cut, I had to get some sort of implement. This is the one she stabbed me with, for those keeping up. The paint should have come all the way to here, and it doesn't. And that's a mistake. The yellow paint inside is done really well. We've got a chip there, a white chip there, and there's no paint on any of these vents. No paint here. You know, no paint really anywhere else on there. We have a different color plastic in there for these like vents type of things, and that works. We got some red paint there on the chest and some silver paint, which looks nice. These two pieces, I'm not sure if they probably should slide together, but they don't really when his head is being held in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then this translucent canopy here, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan of translucent canopies anyway. I mean, I get the point. I'm just not a fan. Then it has the tech specs in there, and the gimmick is that this flaps down when you put the head in, but you can just kind of hold it up against there if you don't want to look at it, which is how I prefer to have them. I don't want to see the tech specs. I don't care about them. Even in G1, I thought it was silly. It's never been my thing. No paint anywhere else on there. We'll get to the accessories right now since we're going down the figure, so to speak. And he comes with his signature 2 rifles. We've got silver paint on just the barrel on both, and that's about it. And they peg. They both clip in here to the back, which is nice. And he holds them as well, and he will hold them. But you can see how that's designed. They don't really go down all the way unless you put the one or the other at a weird angle. But he does hold them, and it's not that big of a deal. And I think there are some other places you can put these if you want them, and that's all fine and a dandy. I wish there were holes on the forearms where you could kind of, give them that look. I just like that look. I just wish the option was there, but it's not. So, waist. Nothing. And the reason why is because the hinge of transformation is at the lower part of the pelvis, and it plugs into the upper part of the waist. So that's why there's no articulation there. There is, however, these flaps, which are a cool idea because it lets you get the legs out, but it only goes about that far, which is going to be problematic to get them in super dynamic poses. You can still get some poses out of them, but you're going to have some problems getting some really extreme poses. I could always make the argument that he's a scientist, so why would he be in a super dynamic pose, but you get what I'm saying. And then this flap goes out as well if you want to get his legs up. That you get a lot more range on this one, which you don't need, and you don't get a whole lot of range on these, which you do need. The shoulders. I wasn't crazy about the design of this toy when I first saw him because I thought the wings were too much. In hand, it is not that imposing, and you can, like, it's not that offensive rather, and you can kind of put them back just like one, because they're soft ratchets, and you can put them back just one click, and it suddenly looks much more streamlined, which I like. And I like all the angles, like the boom, boom, boom. I like that. I'm a fan. The shoulders themselves are ratcheted universals. They're soft ratchets. They only ratchet out, and then it swivels. So that's how that works. Bicep swivel, which is a nice tight bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows, and that feels like it should. Like, it does have a little bit of a soft ratchet, but it's not really effective. And then that one. So, wrist is on a hinge, which is another disappointing element. This is a Voyager size figure, and you got no wrist swivel. So that's a little disappointing. Same on the other side, obviously. The hips. Nice, strong, hard ratchets. They're great. They're fantastic. And you could go further if these pieces allowed you to, but they don't. Also, just real quick, kibble-wise, he cleans up really nicely. Not a whole lot of fluff there. And what else do we got? Knees. There's no paint on the thigh, no paint on the forearms, no paint on the biceps, no paint on the hands. There's some paint on the shoulder, just for those keeping up. The knees, you got a hinge, get you 90 degrees. What more would you want? And you got a thigh swivel. The feet are on soft ratchets, and they have, so you get the tilt on the ratchet, and you got a little bit of a rocker that's also on a ratchet. It's a soft ratchet, but it's still a ratchet, and it's nice. It is nice, but there's a lot of things wrong. Look at all that blue. No paint down in here. No paint in here. You get a little bit there, which is nice. On the back, you got nothing. Nothing. Except for a huge old serial number in bold font, which is a bit obnoxious. But yeah, I'm almost, it's okay. So like, I like this guy, but there's just a lot missing. Like the articulation here in the waist is nothing. These get in the way of articulation. There's no swivel. So there's a lot of problems, but I'm almost hesitant to talk about the problems, that this guy has, because it's like, this is a pretty decent figure, and when Hasbro gets you something that's nice, you're kind of afraid to complain about it, because it could be a scenario where, hey, would you mind bringing me a glass of orange juice? It says pulp.
You like pulp.
I like it when it says some pulp.
What did you say?
This is fine. This is fine. If you know what I'm saying. Let's get him transformed. We're going to talk about his headmaster. Now, this is become common knowledge at this point, right? So get this. This is on this hinge here. Get this out of the way to give yourself as much clearance as you can. Push this down. It even has an arrow there to give you the clue. And you can see it releases up in there. But it's not easy to pull straight out. So if you kind of... Nope. Failure. So let's try again. There you go. So that got it out. And as you can see, I'm going to leave that in just so you can see it is difficult. It is a pain. The headmaster transforms by flipping the feet out. The knees are on the same hinge. The thighs are on the same hinge. The arms are on a, they're on a hinge as well. It almost, I guess they're little ball joints. Pardon me. They're little ball joints, but you can't get much out of them. They're a kibbly mess. It's dumb. It looks totally stupid. It's ridiculous. I wish they just didn't do the headmaster. And then the head here is same type, you got the same type of problem. There is some nice line work and stuff, but it's kind of a throwaway. I didn't need this. I know there's people that are super into headmasters, and I like headmasters too, but I much prefer what kind of Fansproject and even Make Toys are doing. Toy World are doing with theirs as opposed to this. This is better than their Target Master attempts, but it still leaves a fair amount to be desired. Transformation. I'm going to see if I can remember. It's very complicated. So, I'm being facetious. Open up this panel. tuck the hands in. Same on the other side. Kind of get the hands and get the feet out of the way. Open up these panels, tuck the foot in. Open up this panel, tuck the foot in. Now, we got to bring these legs back, these nice ratcheted legs, and we got to bring this forward. Just like so. These tab in with this peg into that first hole there. Right? And then the arms, these little like fins come up. And then the arms, you got to tab that tab there into that slot. So you use your double joints, tab it in, double joints, tab it in. Clean them up. It has a landing gear feature. And there you have him with his headmaster. Of course, the next obvious question is, can you put the headmaster in? And the answer is, of course. Open that up. You gotta flip the stat thing out of the way. Tuck him in there. And there you go. And he's a pretty cool little space jet. I mean, you know, this part here, it bothers me a lot when I saw it in pictures, but having him in hand, it doesn't bother me. I wish there was something here to kind of level it out, or they did something to kind of transform this so it was a little bit more, you know, ended at the same place back here. But it's not hateful. It's simple. It could have used maybe a turn here or a twist there. It's simple. But it is still effective, and it's a nice size jet. I'll give you a size comparison. So there's Scoop. So it's a nice size jet. It still kind of has the same issue where it could use some paint to break that up. There's a lot of little indentations there, and there's a lot of stuff they could have done and they didn't. You know, and it's definitely the weaker of the two modes, but it's not terrible. It doesn't make it bad. This is the major problem, but it's acceptable. So let's look at them next to some other headmasters. There's Toy World's Hardhead, or whatever, Hardbone, I think actually was his name, right? And there's Fansproject's Chrome Dome. And we're going to get into the problems that this is going to create for the collector. But I really like how Toy World's Hardhead looks next to, like, I like that they're about the same height. You know, Hardhead's a little bit taller, but he's a lot beefier, and I kind of dig that. Let's bring some Lost Light guys on board. So there's Whirl, and that looks kind of silly, right? Because it feels like Whirl should be taller, you know, if it's going to be IDW Whirl, which was kind of my complaint with Whirl from Hasbro. And then there's Swerve, and I like that. I love that Swerve with any scale, except for maybe Legends. As long as the bots are super big and he's a little fella, I'm in love with it. And now, the moment of truth. So this causes some debate, right? And we're going to talk a bit about this in the final thoughts section. But there they are next to each other. So, final thoughts. We got to come here at some point. Here's the bad side of them, okay? There's hardly any paint on them. There's some silver, there's some red, there's some blue, but there's not enough of it in enough places. The articulation is hindered either by the mold and the engineering design or by unnecessary flare. There is something a little wonky about the proportions. The arms are super long. The torso is kind of long. And if you look at the torso in relationship to the hips, that like triangle gap on both sides can be kind of irritating. But I'm just pointing it out. The transformation is kind of a cheat. It doesn't really pull off a great jet mode. It just kind of gets in a jet looking shape. And even that is up for debate. And then there's these gaps in these panels here on the wrist that kind of can be kind of irritating. And then of course the big fail is the headmaster getting stuck, not quite ejecting properly, trying to do a bit too much. But I say all that to say this. The reason why those problems are so irritating, and the reason why I really wanted to point out all those problems, is because this toy is really good. He's really fun, and there's a huge likeness between him and the character that you love from the comics, if you love that character from the comics. The problem is that this is a $22 figure, and he's worth every penny. But with those few changes, those few little aspects that they could have put their attention towards and made this maybe a $45 figure or a $50 figure or a $40 figure, and you would have had an absolutely amazing Hasbro Voyager. Listen to me say that to you. An absolutely amazing Hasbro Voyager. But they had to take some shortcuts and get it in order to get it to that $22 price range or $24 price range, and as a result, it takes something that's so close to being fantastic and makes it really good instead, which is acceptable, but it's kind of settling. The line work is great. The articulation, although hindered, where it does articulate, it's super tight, it's super sturdy, and it's really solid. The plastic is typical Hasbro plastic. That's kind of beyond our control, I think, at this point. Just the way it articulates and the way it moves, the way it just feels. It almost, like every articulation that you put it into, it feels, or every pose that you put it into, it feels like Brainstorm from the comics. I've had a hard time putting him into poses that make him feel not like Brainstorm. Like when I try to do super dynamic poses for action shots or whatever, it's really difficult because of all these panels and all these little things that get in the way of that articulation. But even when I do get as close as I can to within that pose, I'm kind of upset with it because it doesn't feel like Brainstorm. But when I get him in a pose like this, where he's kind of thinking, where he's kind of studying, it feels like Brainstorm, and it's an easy pose for him to get it into. If you know what I'm saying. So between him and Fansproject, I think this guy's going on my proper shelf. Fansproject, the paint is better, the engineering is better. It's an overall more highly designed and well-designed toy. There's no doubt about it. But I like my Brainstorm with the face shield, and I love Brainstorm for More Than Meets the Eye. So this one might go on my shelf proper, and the Fansproject one might go on a different shelf somewhere else. Because I really like this guy. And that's what makes the few little irritating elements to him so irritating. Like sand in your shirt that you just can't get out because he's so close to being perfect. Maybe not perfect, but so close to being fantastic. But instead they settled for really good, which is still a huge step in the right direction for this company. And I applaud them. This is better than what I've seen of Roadbuster. I haven't put my hands on Roadbuster, but it's got World Beat. It's got Blitzwing blown out of the water. I don't even want to put my hands on Skybite. It's got the Voyagers from Age of Extinction utterly destroyed. This is a good toy, but it could have been fantastic. Still worth picking up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.